I'm going to get into the Caterpillar story here in just a second, but before I do, and the purpose of this, just a little bit about me. Some of you actually know me. I've met a lot of you here over the years. My first love is sports. When I was a wrestler in high school and college, but my true love was baseball. And I played when in high school I played most of the positions in the infield. And when I was 18, I was all set to be drafted in the first round of the baseball draft by the New York Yankees, except for one tragic reason: talent. I didn't have any. So that's why I'm here today, and I'm in logistics. With that, I want to spend a little time today, over the next 29 minutes and 15 seconds, as I see the clock tick by, to talk a little bit about Caterpillar's journey. And it's a lot similar to probably some of you in the audience, where we started with GT Nexus and sort of basic visibility, and how we're moving through sort of the maturity model beyond that to what I'll call network collaboration with our customers. And so just very briefly, before I get into that, let me talk just for a few minutes about Caterpillar, just briefly. So our global snapshot, and I'm not going to read all these, but I think you can get a sense. We're a big company, okay, and we're global. 62% of our sales and revenues are outside of the United States. A lot of our dealers, and they have about 24 billion of net worth, they are traded on stock exchanges, most of those companies, the dealers themselves, so they are very big. We have 3 million plus units of product working around the world. And not surprisingly, if you look at our supply chain, it sort of mirrors our company as I build out this slide here. This year, we'll probably do about 250,000 TEUs, over 690,000 ground movements. We have 500,000 active parts. We're really big. And the other thing is, like last year, we shipped 3 billion kilograms total of product around the world. Caterpillar, and so for those in the audience that aren't in the automotive or industrial segment, don't you love how they always bin you into segments all the time? I don't really like that at all. But before those people zone out and say, I'm retail, it doesn't apply to me, I'm going to check my email now, or I'm in high tech, I don't know what I'm doing here for this next half hour. Let me just say for Caterpillar, like most of you, although we do ship some really big products, and you can see an underground shearer there that weighs 102 tons that rips up coal underground, most of our items are very small. And the other thing is, when our machines break down somewhere in the world, no matter where they are, and they operate in fairly remote regions, we have to get a part to them within 24 hours. Okay, that's our guarantee. So like a lot of you, our supply chains are long extended with mission critical, time sensitive elements to them. And so I think that applies to a lot of the companies. The other thing is that while we are a B2B company, we have to service end customers too. So it's important for us, even though we're B2B, to act and think like a B2C, business to customer. And I'm going to talk a lot about that as I go forward in the presentation. The other thing is, like some of you for retailers, believe it or not, we are actually seasonal and cyclical as well. Seasonal in that we sell about 65% of our product in about a 4-month period of the year, because our construction product is very seasonal. I'll probably say this about sort of 10 times as I go through this slide, that this is the most important slide. But before I get into it, I tell a story really quickly. And this is a true story. Back in the early 1900s, or the mid 1900s, when Albert Einstein was alive, the renowned physicist, train was the preferred method of travel. And one day he was leaving New York, it was in the wintertime, he's on a train, and the conductor came by and asked him for his ticket. And he started to look, and he traveled on this train frequently, by the way. He started to look in his suit pocket, he couldn't find it, and then he went into his briefcase, and then he started digging into his overcoat, and he was starting to panic, and the conductor was getting a little impatient because he had a lot of people he had to take tickets from, and he said, "It's okay, Dr. Einstein, I know who you are." And so the conductor went to the end of the rail car, he took all the tickets. Before he went to the next one, he just happened to turn around, and now he saw Albert Einstein in a suit in a dirty train car on his hands and knees looking. And the conductor went back and said, Dr. Einstein, it's okay, I know who you are. And Dr. Einstein looked up and said, young man, I know who I am too, I just don't know where I'm going. And so I think that's the point of the rest of this is, where are we going and where are you going today? And so on this slide here, I want to point out, and I could say this about 15 times, sales doesn't own the relationship with the customer anymore. And I'm sure everybody who's in GT Nexus sales is panicked right now. It's like, oh, that's not true, okay? Let me say it again, sales doesn't own the relationship with the customer anymore. If you think about it, demand chain, the new buzzword that came out a few years ago, always starts with the customer back, and I have that in this slide. And by the way, I hate part of this slide because in logistics, they always show something that goes from a supplier to a manufacturer to a dealer to a customer. It's like a straight line. Everybody says, well, logistics is easy, right? Anybody can do this. Why can't you do your job? No, it's a lot more complicated than that. But I think today, the real key is that you may have or make a great product, but if you don't have a good service that goes along with it, then you really don't have a great product because you're not going to meet customer expectations in terms of delivery and visibility. And I think our goal for all of us, no matter what you're out here, is if you're a retailer or a manufacturer, if you're a 3PL, you need to blur the lines between product and service. And I think the tools that GT Nexus and Infor give you allow you to do that, to drive collaboration, move to a more orchestrated network approach where you can truly get collaboration on how your supply chain and logistics should work. And that's a little bit what I'm going to touch on over the next few minutes. So I'll just go ahead and build this slide out. So the journey steps here, I picked them off the internet. You can go and find anywhere a maturity model out there. This may be Gartner. I don't even know where I grabbed it from. And so if you're a GT Nexus customer today, you're clearly beyond 1, which is where in the heck was my part, okay? So everybody has probably solved that. And you're probably at least on to number 2, or I think we're sort of in 3 in Caterpillar. But of course, where you want to get to is how can you manage your network and what really drives the behavior in your large, complicated network. So kind of real easy clues to figure out sort of where are you and what's going on. In stage 1 to 3, the things that you're focused on are continuous improvement, developing standards. You're really internally focused because everything's not going well, and you're trying to develop those standards, and you're very focused on driving cost. And that's not bad because as you put software out there, if you're building product, if you're looking for things, you need to get cost reductions to fuel where you're trying to go up this. And so there's nothing that's tactical or unimportant on that. But as you move up the chain, what you really want to do is to be able to innovate, to have great external focus, to be able to have predictive analytics, to engage your customers in real sort of life-changing discussions. And then, so how do you know where you are in this journey? And there's all sorts of different ways to figure this out. They're all very subjective, but I would just say this. If you have these enablers, you're in 1 to 3. If you have a TMS, okay, if you have control towers or you have some concept like this, if you have network design tools, and if you have strategic sourcing, you use like a Krajik matrix to find out which suppliers are, niche, which ones are more strategic, and you drive costs. Now, those are all good things, but you need those enablers. But as you move up the chain, it's more going towards digital, more towards predictive analytics, more towards IoT platform, and also to engage your customers, what Charles Phillips of Infor calls beautiful software, something that really drives engagement. And so this is kind of an easy way to see where you are. And I think for Caterpillar, we're kind of at stage 3, but I'm going to talk about the journey. I'll show you a little bit about some of the tools that we've developed that you can use at a GT Nexus in sort of stage 1 and 3. And I'll tell you a little bit about our journey as we're going from 3 to 5. And it is a journey for us. I would like to say that we're there, but we're not. The first thing I want to talk about before I get into the meat of things is supply chain variability, because I think for all of us, that is really the most important concept that you have to drive. And I use this slide all the time to talk about variability, because we look at things at, a 95% Two Sigma confidence level to be able to tell sort of where we are. But what variability really means, and I use this here, is that if I was to tell you on average, your most normal body temperature is 98 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees Celsius. If I was to tell you, I'll make a bet with you, and I'll give you $10,000, we're going to do this experiment, and I guarantee, okay, you'll get 10,000 bucks. I'll guarantee I'll keep your body temperature at 98 degrees, but I'm going to stick your feet in the fire and your head in the freezer. Okay? How many people would take that bet in the audience here? Who'd want to do that? Be part of that experiment? Nobody. And the reason is why. Well, maybe not. Maybe you're just all, I don't know. What did he just say? I'm not really sure. But the reason why is because the variability would kill you, right? Well, it's the same as supply chain. Everybody stocks to the tail on the curve because they don't trust the people that it's going to get it there. That's where they create the safety stock. That drives inventory. That drives disruptions, it drives cost, and so it's really our job to take that variability out. By the way, when I asked this recently at a recent university, about 5 kids raised their hand and said they would go ahead and do the experiment. And what I thought about that is I actually want those people working for me, because either they're just fearless or they'll do anything, which is great, or they're desperate and they really need money and they're going to work really hard. So either way, I thought it was surprise, obviously that it doesn't apply to anybody here, but anyway, enough with that. So here's some look. We put Tableau front ends in sort of stage 1 through 3, and you can see over in the far right on the screens here sort of which slides apply to what part of the journey. But we put some Tableau front ends on here. But I just want to take you through, I changed the numbers relatively, but the use case is pretty much the same for Caterpillar. So Caterpillar, very cyclical company. This year, our year-over-year shipping is up 35% compared to last year. We are shipping a lot more product right now. The space that we play in is coming back big time after 4 years of down. So we're shipping a lot more. And not surprisingly, our on-time percentage deteriorated. What this looks at right here was this is anything that doesn't pass a gate of 20 days from the time it ships to a supplier, gets trucked to a cross dock, puts on a 40-foot container, goes to the port, and the ship has picked it up and it's sailed. So it's an arbitrary number. It doesn't really matter. Our supply lines are long before they get international, but it just shows you that it's deteriorated. And then you can ask yourself, well, where is the deterioration and why? And so if you look at this slide, you can see the biggest part was Asia. On average, the total transit time from Europe to Asia went up by about 2 days or 3 days. And the initial reaction to something like that was, does that matter? 2 or 3 days, we're busy, on a base of 50? Who really cares? Well, for us, we have about 1.2 billion of inventory in transit at any one point in time. So every day, okay, adds at least $500,000 to $700,000, or it's a profit deterioration when you take our cost of capital. So first of all, that really does matter to us. But secondly, it's not so much that that was bad enough. It's the variation that kills you. And you can pull out of this, and it's a little bit of an eye chart, but if you look in the middle of this, you can see that the change in deviation for some of the key lanes out of Europe was 8 and 10. So the averages only went up by 2, but the deviation is killing us. We had things that were sitting around for such a long time. So why is that? And I don't know about your experience, but mine is that where we have a lot of problems, I'm not saying there aren't big disruptions and this is why the product is critical, or that steamship lines don't sail sometimes on time, but usually it's if the data flow doesn't match the physical flow, things don't move. A real simple example is you can be a great person, but if you try to go to a foreign country and you don't have your passport, you're not getting in, right? You may have physically gotten to the border, no problem, but you're not getting in without that passport. It's the same with international shipping. You need that data. And in this case right here, when we drilled down to it, you could see that there were some particular suppliers where we didn't have the right international data flow. And so it sat, and it sat not just a little bit of time, it sat for a long time in a container cross-dock in something they called the grief bay. And that container cross-dock, the people that ran it said, well, we don't have to track that because that's separate. What we monitor is everything that flows through, right? But you wouldn't see that if you don't get to this level of detail to understand what's really causing it. And I think the point on this is it's really easy to see it. One of the lessons I learned a long time ago, before I was in logistics, I was in the military for a long time, and well, about 7 or 8 years. And this is a true story. Napoleon, who was one of the most brilliant battlefield tacticians, he had a very junior lieutenant on his staff. And that lieutenant, which is kind of odd, but the lieutenant wasn't from aristocracy either, because most of the staff's made up of other generals or colonels. But not only was he was not very smart, he was really dumb. And the reason Napoleon had him on the staff was because when he and his generals would prepare the battle plans, he would give it to this lieutenant. If he knew the lieutenant could understand it, he knew the troops in the field could execute it, right? And that's actually a true story. And so when I think about engaging software, it has to be at a level where everyone can understand it. If not, you don't get the engagement, you don't get the aha moments, and you can't drive a better result. It's really hard. And so that's one of the things that we're always trying to do. I always tell everybody I'm Napoleon's dumb lieutenant. If you can't get it through me, nobody else has got to understand it, right? So these next couple slides, this is from a user perspective. The other ones we use for senior people to see what's going on. But I think you have to have different software, different tools, depending on what your roles are. And when I showed this to Greg Kiefer, who introduced me, you can imagine what a marketing guy was. He's like, oh, I don't know, you shouldn't show this. There's like too much detail. They're not gonna be able to understand it, right? And it's like, no, don't do this. Oh, no, just a big picture, right? Like a big animal picture, like little kids, you just have something in the back. Oh, this looks bad, These people, they're going to try to be taking pictures. They're not going to understand what it is. My point of this, though, is the reason I wanted to show it is because, yeah, it doesn't really show well to the audience, but this kind of engagement, when you're the user trying to solve problems, you need to get to this level of detail here. And at the bottom, I won't go through all of this in the interest of time, because I will run out of time fairly quickly. In just the bottom one with the orange dots and the gray bars. If the orange dot, that's the MRP transit time, what the factory has put in for the allowable transit time. But the gray bar is how long it's really taking. So the gap between the two is all the excess inventory they're stocking because their material replenishment time, the buffer they put in, was excess. And just in this example, for one plant, that's worth $1 million in our company. So you can get big return on this product if you can put a front end on it to engage with people so they can see that. And I'm going to show you 2 more like this. This is another one. I got 2 more that Greg said, I did, when he went through it, can't show this. No, okay? 2 more like this, all right? This is a supplier network dashboard. And for us, this is all the suppliers, or some of them, that went into our facility in Athens, Georgia, where we build some of our smaller product. And what this is, it just shows whether it goes through a console, in other words, where you have ocean containers, or it's shipped direct in an ocean container, we send it air. And it can highlight in sort of a red, yellow, green status kind of a thing, what looks good and what looks bad. So I circled one on there, and the reason is I got multiple suppliers shipping very low weight to a console multiple times a week. So think about that. How often does a ship sail normally, ship sailing frequency? At most, like once a week. Why are you shipping 2? Because you're going to hold the material for once a week. So if you get it down to a smaller lot size, you can save a lot. And the other thing is not everything should go through a console. You get a better inventory plus profit return if on some items you ship them air. Even though it could be costly, the amount of time that you can save on the ocean journey for smaller items really saves. So that's the kind of engagement that you want at the working level to get the right discussions. And this one here looks the same. Again, these are for users. It's mode efficiency. Are you using the right mode, right? So the obvious thing is more heavy is the way you want to be for a big console where you're putting them in 40 or 53-foot high cubes, right? And smaller for something like parcel. But you can see here, like on the console one, we had 376 shipments going in there were 68 kilograms or less. And so the whole idea is you've got misaligned metrics in the network, and you can drive real opportunity if you can get to a level that drives engagement with users where it's easy to see. Now, kind of shifting where we're going now is we're really trying to take it to the next level and creating a digital work plan around us. And I don't have time to go into each one of these, but I will anyway, really quickly. So PDCs are product distribution centers for us, where we have product, it goes, it sits, it's stored, forward deployed, and then they can modify it at the end. All the booms, the buckets, the sticks, different track, different cabs at the end, because these can be highly configured product. People need to see what's in there with the inventory, what it looks like at the time. eVis portal is where we take our data, send it out in a web-enabled app, so all our dealers can see when a machine starts online, because it takes about 16 to 18 weeks to build our product, all the way through to when it ships and arrives to them. Web service, if they don't want to use ours, then we can push them the data. And a mobile app, same thing. So you have different delivery methods. And then finally, we're trying to put GPS sensors, at least in China, Europe, and North America, on all their truck moves. Then we're trying to tie real-time events elsewhere to our IoT visibility platform. And finally, we have something called Product Linked on our machines that is tied to the performance of the machine, but we also want to use that for GPS events. And so that's kind of our work plan. Yours may be different, but what I would say about this is you want to have multiple delivery mechanisms to your customers. The more that you can have, the better you can communicate. And you want to do it how they want to see it, and it may be different for different customers. And I'm just going to show you some of the work that we did with Infor to create a front end. And this front end looks more like what I'd call beautiful software. It's clean, it doesn't have a lot of stuff on it, it drives engagement with our customers, which is in our case our dealers. It's easy to see and understand. It's what I call big animal pictures, right? So if any of you have children, what are the books you read to your kids when they're really young? It's a book that has a picture and a few words. It's really easy, big animal pictures. That's what this does. So it drives engagement at any level with any of our dealers. And in this example here, you can see, you can point and click, and for this dealer here, you can see they have 57 machines in motion right now, and there's none that are late. But if they are, you could drill down on them. You can get the details for each individual machine, as an example, and the ones that are idle, because we want our inventory to talk to us in the next phase. We want the inventory, if it's sitting, we want to say, why is it sitting, why is it rest? And when is it going to move again? If it's moving, we want it to say, when is it going to get there, right? And so in this example here, the two that are idle, why those would be yellow, is we've geo-fenced all the dealers' lots, and a lot of times they will say, hey, I didn't receive this machine today because one group didn't talk to another, they're really big, and it's actually sitting there, they didn't even know it's arrived because no one received it into the system. So we can tell those kind of things. We've geo-fenced all our arrival locations because for some of us, our arrival locations are a location that there's no road. It's just a latitude, longitude. So we can do things, and I'll go through some of this fairly quickly. We can show where all our machines are real time at what point. You can see what the routes are traveled if you want to, and it's all very clear. You can get the detail of the machine. You can see all the pieces, when it left, when it's going to arrive, if you want to get all the detail. You can get a satellite view of everything so they can see how their whole network is performing, or for us. You can get a list of all their machines, and you can see a progress bar of where it is in all the different gating events, from the time it goes to the factory to the time it gets there. And this has really helped all these things, and this would be the same thing. This is pushed to them in an e-visibility order screen. And again, the key here is this drives better collaboration for all of us. It gives our partners full information to everything that's going on. And for us, it's not that much difference than your ordering experience. Let's say your washer or dryer breaks down, and that's happened to me. Mine broke down. It was like, of course, like 5 months after the warranty was out. All my family was off on a vacation. I was stuck at home working. I was all pissed off because I had a bunch of loads of laundry to do, and I was really busy, and I was at work. And so when the washing machine was going to come, I didn't want it to be there early. That's bad because I'm at work and I had other things, and you certainly don't want it to be late. You need it on time. Our product is the same way because they have to have big crews put it together. Early is bad, late is bad. It needs to be on time, so this gives them that kind of visibility. We're using real-time visibility on the ground. We have FourKites, but you could deploy a lot of things. The benefit of this is we found that real-time visibility now is about 10 to 20% better than EDI. But real-time visibility is a journey, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the next couple of slides. It's not one size fits all around the world, and predictive analytics, I would say, is more aspirational than executable right now. So there are some point-to-point where predictive analytics is really good, and there's a lot of companies out there. But for most of you, if you ship multimodal through transshipment hubs, if you have a lot of variability, it's going to be a bit of a journey. And just remember that as you go through there. But today, we have real-time visibility in China and in Europe and in ground. Here we use FourKites, and we integrate it through our hub for domestic truck, and these are the easiest of the legs. But you can see where it is, where it's going. I'm not allowed to bring my phone up here, I think because of the feedback, but if so, I could show you the mobile app so I could see everything that's going on right now through that. With sensors, the one thing I want to say about this, when I started this journey, sensoring product, I thought, oh, well, this is easy. You just go out and get a CalAmp sensor that costs about 20 bucks, and you can slap it on a machine everywhere, and you're done. Well, you could probably do that, but I could talk for an hour on the complexity of GPS sensor regulations. Some places they're not even allowed anything that uplinks to a satellite. Other ones you have to have certain marking. Other ones it has to be embedded in the machine or the product. There's all sorts of rules around which ones are allowed and where and the frequencies they're on. My point is that it's not a one-size-fits-all everywhere and around the world. If somebody tells you that, they haven't done their homework and they don't know what they're talking about. So it's pretty complicated. Because of that, we have to have a sensor strategy that's very different. So we can use aggregators for single domestic moves. That's a GPS sensor that could be tied to a phone or an app, and that's what we're using domestically. That's pretty easy. We're going to use AIS events plus predictive analytics for all the vessel data. Where we'll sensor product is where we have multi-loads, where there's a machine and there's 5 or 6 pieces that have to go together so you can track it all. That will be expensive, but it's a very small piece of our network. That's kind of where we're going with all this. And so I've got about 3 minutes left, and let me just talk just really quickly and just tell you some lesson learned. And I don't think it's anything that I probably haven't already said. One is you need to consider how you're going to blur the lines between product and service from a logistics perspective. How do you create an execution model that gives you a competitive edge? The digital journey, like I said, is somewhere between aspirational and executable. I think that companies like GT Nexus, Infor are making a lot of exciting progress in that area, and we're working with them on a lot of those things. But I think just go in with your eyes wide open when you start down this, because it's early. You'd be an early adopter in this space. The information sharing is critical. It drives better collaboration engagement because it's real fact-based data. It drives better customer solutions. Choose your strategic provider partners carefully. Make sure they're aligned with your vision and they can be agile and adaptive. So for us, visibility with GT Nexus was the key enabler in our journey, because if you can't fix it if you can't see it. And then the other thing is on the maturity model, a lot of executives say, oh, we may be in stage 1, but I want to bypass all this and go right to stage 5. No, you can't do that. You have to put all those enablers in along the way, and they add value along the way. So I would just say follow the journey, right? And it'll work. And so lastly, in closing, I'd like to say, first of all, thanks for giving me this 30 minutes of fame. Unlike Albert Einstein, I hope you not only know who you are, but where you're going to. This has given you a little bit of insight about our journey at Caterpillar. And I'd love to hear during the next couple of days sort of what you're doing or what you're thinking in this space. And we'll be around, and also my general manager for all the international work, Tabitha Booth, who's sitting right over there. She'll be glad to talk to you too, because she probably knows a lot more of the details than I do. So again, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.